Have you ever wanted a water garden or mini pond but thought you just didn't have the space for it? Well, today I want to show you how to build a simple but beautiful DIY mini pond. It only takes up 4 square feet of ground space, so you can easily fit it on most apartment balconies or home patios, practically anywhere. This is a simple tutorial video, only requires basic tools and materials. This mini pond doesn't require a pump or a water filter, but of course you can use one if you want to. While working on my last video, I was playing around with some pond plant arrangements, trying to get a good picture for the video thumbnail. And I really love the way this group of plants look together, and it inspired me to make another mini pond using these plants. And I knew exactly which container to use for this project. It seems like this faux wood barrel is used in every mini pond video on YouTube, but there are good reasons why it is so popular. They are an ideal size and shape, and they're durable and inexpensive. A question I am frequently asked is, how do I support the plants? Stacking bricks and setting the plants on top of them is a common method, but I like to hang plants from the rim whenever possible, and these plastic hooks are perfect for this container rim. I've been using these hooks for years as one way to support houseplants growing out of some of my smaller aquariums, and these can easily be spray painted to blend in. I'm growing all of these plants in 1-gallon nursery pots, and I've made holes just below the rim for the hooks to go into. The main reason I prefer hanging plants from the rim is because the bricks take up space underwater. It doesn't matter as much in larger containers, but this gives the fish more room to swim and hide when underwater real estate is at a premium. Now here's a fun fact that I'll bet you didn't know. These 3 pond plants are edible. Now I can't tell you what they taste like yet, but now I'm kind of curious. Maybe I'll try them out toward the end of the video. Now I'm going to add a few more plants which are not edible. This Acorus, or Japanese sweet flag, is bare root, but I can place it on top of the planting media in one of the pots and cover the roots with some gravel, and it will eventually take root, grow down into the potting media. And the same with the creeping Jenny. Now for some reason I'm thinking the red sorrel and the water celery need to exchange places. Now it probably really doesn't matter, but hey, guess what? I can do it if I want to, and quickly, because we've got our handy little hooks. The plan for the creeping Jenny is for it to spill over the outside of the container and not grow so much in the water. But of course, CJ grows wherever she wants to, and some will inevitably grow in the water, and that's okay. I just need to control it, because CJ, man, she can really take over. Well, now let's dress up the foreground by adding some river stones, and I even have a few Petoskey stones for accent pieces. And Java moss works perfectly to hide the plastic pots and create a ground cover. I place the Java moss over the edge of the pots so that some of it is draping over the rim and into the water. This way it can wick moisture upward to keep the moss constantly wet. And it can also wick moisture up from the potting media that it's sitting on. And over time, the moss will secure itself to all the surfaces and start forming a ground cover. After placing the container where I want it to live, a pea gravel and aqua soil blend is poured into the bottom and leveled out. And I mix some tap water and seasoned pond water to fill up the new pond. Most planted aquarists, it seems, do not let their red tiger lotus send its leaves to the water surface. And this makes sense in an aquarium. Keeping the leaves underwater does provide a wonderful red color, and the leaves don't block the light from other plants. But if you let them break the surface, they will give you a mottled green and dark red leaf pattern. And letting them break the surface in an outdoor pond, of course, does provide much needed shade for fish and helps control algae. Plus, who doesn't want a lily pad in their pond? This red tiger lotus is going to stay in its pot so that it can be easily moved indoors during the winter, because it is a tropical lily. I decided to use duckweed as my floating plant, It gives a better sense of scale to the pond than other floating plants, and plus my Amazon frog bit, which is what I normally use, is currently going nuts and has quickly overwhelmed some of my other container ponds. And plus I can feed duckweed to my goldfish when it's time to thin it out. Now I forgot to shoot this apparently, but I did plant some dwarf Sagittaria in the bottom of our pond. Driftwood can help add depth to the scape, and it doesn't have to be anything exotic or expensive. These are just some random pieces that I had laying around, but they help add natural character to this pondscape. I placed some Miyuki blue rice fish in this mini pond, but you can keep other small species in here too, like guppies or mosquito fish, cherry barbs, or white cloud minnows, to name a few widely available options. I do not recommend keeping goldfish in a pond this small. They just do better in larger containers, larger volumes of water. Now the most important thing to consider when deciding where to set up your mini pond is sunlight. A few hours of morning sun and afternoon shade is ideal. This provides enough light for the plants without overheating the water for the fish, and helps keep the algae in check. Now depending on your particular climate, these mini ponds are really meant to be seasonal. All of these plants that we used are winter hardy in plant zones 3 through 10, except for the tiger lotus, but a hardy dwarf water lily could be substituted. But the fish mentioned will need to be moved indoors during the winter, although most rice fish and mosquito fish can handle cold water just fine as long as the entire pond doesn't freeze. This is just a cheap solar light that's normally used for lining sidewalks and things like that, but it also works perfectly for projects like this, allowing you to enjoy your pond even at night. Now we have a beautiful mini pond to enjoy all summer long, and it only takes up 4 square feet. Well, we're not done yet. We still need to see what these plants taste like. A little of this and a little of that. First, let's try out the red vein sorrel. Now this is truly my first time to taste any of these. That's interesting. Kind of has a citrus flavor, slight lemon flavor to it. That's pretty good. Now let's try the water celery. It actually tastes just like celery. That's crazy. Tastes just like celery, no joke. Now for the pickerel rush. I have to say I have my doubts about this, but here goes. Ooh, that's tough. Ooh. The flavor doesn't really have a flavor, it just tastes like a leaf. Let's see if the stems are just as tough. Yeah, that's just tough. It doesn't have any flavor. It's just kind of fibrous. Definitely recommend cooking that if you're going to eat it. In case you're wondering what all the chirping was about, there's a family of house finches almost directly above my head. This is actually the second pair of house finches to use this nest this spring. Well, I hope that you found this video helpful in setting up your mini pond. Be sure to check out my other video on pond planting media to learn my secret for growing healthy plants and keeping the water clear.